2001: A Space Odyssey is better than The Godfather. Godfather is one of the best stories ever told. It has one of the most iconic characters ever, one of the best character arcs ever, best character development ever, some of the best performances ever, some of the best cinematography ever, detailed set design, iconic shots, music. You could go on and on and on. In terms of traditional storytelling, films that use a common narrative plot structure, it's regarded as the perfect film. 2001 doesn't perfect these aspects like The Godfather does. So, how can 2001 be better than a film that perfects every traditional aspect that makes a film a masterpiece? Let's get into it. Now guys, before I explain why it's better, first we need to understand why it's not popular opinion that 2001 is better. Just go outside, ask people what the best film of all time is. It should be obvious that it's not popular opinion. I've placed timestamps so you can skip to the explanation section if you don't want to watch this part. And sorry for the audio quality guys, I don't have a proper setup yet. That's me, recording underneath his bed sheets. Me and my squeaky voice. But if you could please support my channel by giving me a like and a sub, that'd be greatly appreciated. And then hopefully I could have a good recording setup someday. Because honestly, it's as hot as Brittany under here. Anyway, let's keep moving. So, why is it not popular opinion that 2001 is better than The Godfather? In terms of critical view, if you Google the greatest films lists on the internet, 90% of them rank The Godfather higher than 2001. No surprise here, hence why I feel the need to make this video. There are a few lists that place 2001 higher than The Godfather, but it's in the minority as you can clearly see. How can we make sense of this fact? In terms of general public view, it does make sense that the average moviegoer would enjoy The Godfather more. The first 5 minutes is just a black screen, so that can already turn a lot of people off from watching the rest of the film. Because of that, most people aren't going to pay as much attention as they should to a complex film like 2001. Therefore, the film will most likely go over their heads. Now remember, I'm only talking about the average moviegoer. 241 people walked out of the film's premiere. It initially bombed at the box office because people were bored out of their minds. It only became a blockbuster hit because drug users just wanted to watch the film for the Stargate sequence. So the film was already fighting a losing battle to grab the audience right from the get-go. It was always going to fail with public views in regards to what the best film of all time is. I think it's safe to say that most regular moviegoers generally don't have the attention span to enjoy quite possibly the slowest film ever made. However, in the movie industry, 2001 seems to be talked about on a more consistent basis.
It was the first time I went to a movie where I really felt like I was having a religious experience.
I watched the film 18 times in its first couple of years of release, all in theaters. I remember at one, a guy ran down the aisle toward the screen screaming, "It's God, it's God."
Legendary directors, modern greats of this era, and actors love to talk about 2001. I know these quotes are from a small number of people out of millions, but based on my very in-depth research, I've only managed to find 4 directors that talked about The Godfather. Maybe there's more to talk about in regards with 2001. Maybe everything that could be said about The Godfather has been said already. Or maybe it's because 2001 is more of an influence on directors, not only in science fiction, but also outside of science fiction too.
Of course, there was a great deal written about the film, or written about the mystery of the film before it was released. And so when I went to see it, I expected much more than a film. And as I said, we got it, you know.
So why is 2001 better than The Godfather? Let's dive in. Groundbreaking visuals. Now, Let me be clear. Great visuals do not make a film great. But great, innovative visuals make a great film more believable and timeless. How does a film that was made in 1968 look so damn good? You've got the Stargate sequence, which might be the most mesmerising visuals in the history of cinema. It was projected on a blue screen, but the visuals were created from real-world objects. Douglas Trumbull shot floating objects in a pool and shot vehicles at night with a slow shutter speed. Blue screens was all they could use for visual effects. Blue screen was also used for landscapes and the moon landing sequence. But everything else you see in this film is practical effects, from the floating pen to the intricate models of spacecraft that were carefully photographed for a realistic depth of field, while massive sets were created for the monolith scenes and the interior shots of the ship, like the rotating centrifuge. These mesmerising effects created a sense of realism that was otherwise absent from other sci-fi films of that era. The effects are often so convincing, it's easy to forget that this film didn't come out in 2001. The following year, NASA landed a man on the moon and provided a real-life reference for future films. Influence and predictions. Like I said before, it inspired every sci-fi film that came after it. It opened up the market for commercial sci-fi blockbusters, including Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, The Terminator, Alien. Any film with an AI was influenced by it. It even influenced non-sci-fi films. There Will Be Blood, The Tree of Life, The Silence of the Lambs. 2001 has also had an influence on science. Its technology and ideas are well ahead of their time. Here's a quote from Alec Damien Gillimore, an American aerospace engineer from the University of Michigan, who's influenced by this film since the age of 4. I develop plasma propulsion technology that the movie identifies would be needed to propel astronauts to Jupiter. Robin Murphy, a professor at Texas A&M University, said, "It placed AI into the mainstream consciousness even before the first AI robot, Shaky, was completed in 1969. 2001 is becoming more and more relevant as the years go by with the progression of AI. It showed us iPads, Skype, aerospace technology, and of course AI. In 1968, it predicted what the surface of the moon would look like. It predicted what Earth would look like from space. Now, Stanley didn't get any of them absolutely spot on, especially Earth. But if he did, then that's actually just kind of creepy, to be honest, and I'd be questioning if Stanley was actually human at all. Just like the creators of The Simpsons.
So we're not so different after all.
It's a layered puzzle that allows you to connect the dots whichever way you want to connect them. I see 2001 as a treasure chest full of ambiguity, hidden messages, metaphors, questions, a believable philosophy. The film is so rich that people are still trying to understand its complexities through articles, YouTube videos, over 50 years later. Theories on who planted the monolith and what it represents and what the end means, etc. are still being discussed on forums and YouTube comment sections to this day. Despite me being a 2001 fanatic, I just discovered a new theory about the origin of the monolith. It's called the Dat theory. Dat is a branch that resides in the abyss of the Tree of Life. The theory suggests that there are monoliths in the real world right now. Phones, computer screens, future AI, like the HAL 9000. Notice how he's shaped just like a monolith. They all provide information that help the progression of mankind, just like the monoliths in 2001. If you want your mind blown, I've put a link in the description. I'm not going to get into the details in my video as it's long enough as it is. In this section, I'm going to uncover the hidden messages, metaphors, and the underlying philosophy. First though, It needs to be stated that Stanley is known for being a perfectionist and someone who pays close attention to the smallest detail. Every single thing you see inside a frame of any of his films is there for a reason.
Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, forever.
So with that in mind, 2001 starts with nothing. Or is it nothing? All you hear is 5 minutes of eerie music. Nothing on screen to distract you, just emptiness. A black void. Stanley is showing us something, but we don't know what that is yet until we get further into the film. For all we know, Stanley is putting us into a trance and preparing our minds for a slow-moving film. It's the title sequence, it's grand, it's wonderful, and then monkeys? What the fuck? We see a tribe of apes just doing what apes do. Then one morning, a tall, mysterious black slab planted in the ground presents itself. Something clearly not from Earth. The monolith speeds up the process of evolution by turning apes into killing machines. And then we cut to a space station. I know you're confused, because that just doesn't make any sense. How does a black rectangle that just sits there and does nothing supposed to speed up evolution? This is where you realise the true genius of Stanley. Any other filmmaker would have probably used magic for the evolution of a species. But what Stanley did was he let the apes evolve organically through a more natural means. You can see the apes are startled. They instantly go into defensive mode. This represents fear. Then they go quiet and start edging closer and reaching their hand out with caution. This represents courage. Eventually they all crowd the monolith unafraid. They start caressing it. This represents curiosity. House of Zen described it perfectly. The apes saw the world from a primal and survival-based intelligence level. Then one day they saw something in a way which they could not describe. The apes transitioned from a lesser state of awareness and into something more. It was so sudden, and out of nowhere it captivated them in a manner which superseded all that in the background. The apes had their first intelligently conscious moment. Now if you think I'm just trying to create messages that aren't there, just ask yourself, do you think that's how you would react if a monolith was to present itself in front of you? There is a realization for the apes that they can use bones as a weapon. What comes after is widely considered to be the greatest cut in film history. We go from the first ever tool, the bone, to the pinnacle of creative ability, within our limitations of time and space of course, aerospace technology, in this case the satellite. That is why the film starts with prehistoric times, to not only show the evolution of apes into humans, but to also show how far we've come as a species. First the bone, then the spear, then fire, then the torch, then the gun, then the light bulb, all the way to satellites and space stations. The progression of technology in one cut. We're in the present now, and we get to see mankind's new toys. Wow! 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 I'm sure you thought why all these shots drag on for 5 minutes. Well, we've just spent 15 minutes in prehistoric times watching apes in a science fiction film. It's time to celebrate and appreciate technology. So relax, put the feet up, let it pull you in. Like I said before, Stanley does everything for a reason. The long shots come to an end, the celebration is finished, and humans discover another monolith buried underneath the lunar surface, identical to the one seen 4 million years ago. After the evolution of apes, what will be the next evolutionary step for mankind? interplanetary spaceflight. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. You can see the same reactionary pattern between the apes and the humans, without the fear, of course, which I think is pretty cool, and it just shows how far we've come as a species. We've gotten smarter and dumber at the same time.
Is the moon really a planet?
The moon is a planet.
Don't look at me like that. The sun is a star.
Planet.
Is the sun not a star?
I don't know what the sun is.
The sun is
we
a
don't
star,
know what
isn't
the
it?
sun is.
The sun is a star. The moon is not a planet.
Moon
I
is
knew
a planet.
Is France a country?
Anyway, a man finds another monolith orbiting Jupiter. Notice how I reduced David Bowman from a main character down to just a man, as if he isn't important. If you think he is, or anyone is, then you're missing the bigger picture of this film. The film isn't about him, it doesn't revolve around anyone. There are no main characters. The film focuses on the bigger picture that is mankind and how far we've come, and how far we will go. What's interesting about the humans in the film? Notice how they all sort of act emotionless and robotic compared to HAL 9000. An AI that speaks with more emotion and sounds more alive than the humans do, even though he's a piece of technology created by humans.
Well, I must say, you guys have certainly come up with something.
When he gets lobotomized by Dave, he begs for his life while Dave just continues the procedure with minimal facial expression.
Dave, my mind is going. I'm afraid.
Is that a sign that humans are becoming less humane as technology progresses? You can see glimpses of it in society right now with social media and virtual reality, etc. People prefer to stare at a screen instead of interacting with people face to face. How disconnected with the real world are we going to be in 50 years? Let's get back to what really matters, the monolith. The planets in the monolith perfectly aligned to form a shape of a cross. What does this mean? The man is then teleported through what seems to be a wormhole to another dimension or a different part of the galaxy. Who knows? He is then teleported to a modernised series of rooms with vintage furniture and antiques. We watch the man watch his older self, and then he watches his older self, and then he watches his older self, and then a baby. What the fuck? What did we just witness? We watched mankind's next evolutionary step. Let's go back to the cross. What does it mean? It's a message that the man is Earth's saviour. This is also where the theory of Dat comes in. Again, link is in the description. He is then teleported and fed all information that can possibly exist in the universe. What does this look like to you? The Big Bang, perhaps? The man is being shown the creation of the universe, therefore learning all existing information that can possibly exist, becoming more intelligent than we can ever imagine. He is then transferred to an unrecognisable place, but looks familiar at the same time. Is this room even real? Is this his own subconscious mind? Heaven? A zoo created for him by aliens? You can hear animal sounds in the background. Which would suggest this theory. To add to this theory, we know zookeepers make familiar habitats for different animals. Exactly what the aliens did for this animal here, wandering around in his familiar but clearly fake habitat. Either way, he's there until he dies of old age. The monolith, as we know, represents the next evolutionary step for mankind. The beginning of a new age of man evolved from a human into an all-knowing being called the Star Child. Now we can understand what Stanley was showing us before the title sequence. He is showing us a monolith. The film itself is a monolith, which suggests we're about to watch a film so extraordinary and beautiful and grand that it exceeds film. It's not a film, it's an experience. There is no other film like it. How could a film that has roughly 88 minutes of zero dialogue provide so much value? According to Keir Dullea, who plays Dave, a nun said it was one of the most religious experiences she's ever had. It's an experience that no other film provides. It's as close to any film will ever get to an out-of-body experience. I know The Godfather has better plot and characters, blah blah blah, but like I said, 2001 goes beyond that. These aspects are not important like they are in The Godfather. The Godfather needs these things to make it a great film, and without these aspects, there is no film to watch. And may I add, some say The Godfather isn't actually perfect. According to the Mafia, it wasn't an accurate depiction of life in the Mafia. Some say it isn't even the best Godfather film. The Godfather Part 2 is, in a sense, the first film, but bigger and better. It has a more deeper, complex story. It takes aspects from the first film and improves on them. There is a sense of believability with 2001. It feels factual, not fiction. Everything you see in this film looks like it's happening in present day, or it could have happened in the past, or will happen in the future. 2001 is like a visual history study, and not just the origins of mankind, but also the universe, like a visualization of an alternate version of the Bible, a new religion, all told in 2.5 hours. To me, that is way more impressive and grand than anything we see in The Godfather. And that's why I believe 2001 A Space Odyssey is better than The Godfather. Thanks for watching. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Which film do you prefer? But most importantly, are you happy? Unhappy? And how you doing? How's your mum? That's good to hear. If you made it this far, please punch your screen and I'll see you next time.